Hello everyone, I'm Alison Steinberg and welcome to In Focus. Today marks the 1-month anniversary of the massacre of Jews in Israel, killing over 1,400, including atrocities against children that are so barbaric we can't even describe them here. Over 200 remain captive, that is, if they haven't already been brutally tortured and killed by these monsters. In the last month, we have borne witnesses here in America to the same hatred for Jews and Americans that was behind the October 7th attacks. It started with ignorant college kids chanting mantras they don't even understand, like from the river to the sea. But it's now advancing to physical assaults of the White House gates and monuments in D.C. to murder. A 65-year-old Jewish man, Paul Kessler, was killed by a pro-Palestinian protester who hit Kessler over the head with a megaphone. He suffered a brain hemorrhage and it died the next day. This took place in the Thousand Oaks area of Los Angeles during a rally in which Mr. Kessler had been holding an Israeli flag. Imagine the headlines if this was a person of color and the megaphone maniac was wearing a MAGA hat. But an elderly Jewish man gets beaten to death by a pro-Hamas bully, and the media reports it as him dying after hitting his head and dying after suffering a head injury at a demonstration. He didn't fall and hit his head on a curb, and a piano most certainly didn't fall from the sky. He was murdered for being Jewish and daring to speak up against the terrorists. But a megaphone wasn't the only weapon used against Jews in the last few days. A pro-Palestinian woman rammed her car into what she thought was a Jewish school, the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge. But the Israelite School is an exclusive club for Black Hebrew Israelites who hate Jews as much as she does. So she's stupid on top of being a terrorist. Did the DOJ hate crime unit swoop in here? Well, of course not. She's just been charged with criminal recklessness. I guess she was reckless in her choice of schools to ram. Reckless is our government's response to the wave of this ideology and violence, announcing last week their new National Anti-Islamophobia program, which not only is monumentally moronic, as appeasement obviously never works, but is as anti-Semitic as it gets. What should the government be doing about this wave of anti-Semitism and resulting violence? Well, here to discuss, Ian Haworth, columnist and host of Off Limits. Ian, thanks for being with us. It's great to have you today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, here we are on the 1-month anniversary of the barbaric attacks against Jews, and Jews are being attacked and murdered now. Can you make this make sense to me, Ian? I mean, the media is clearly a partner in the anti-Semitism here. The headlines pretending that Mr. Kessler died in some weird accident to cover for a pro-Hamas murderer. It's just repulsive. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting. I think we've learned a lot of very unfortunate and very scary things about the United States and the West generally in the last month. I think what happened in Israel is obviously abhorrent, but for those who've been following what's going on in Israel and various Palestinian terrorist groups, Hamas are pretty open about what they want. They've wanted to kill all the Jews since their inception. What is surprising for me is to see the West really not only lean into this propaganda, but become a megaphone for it. We've seen every single American institution, whether it be media, academia, to some extent entertainment, parroting pro-Hamas talking points. We're seeing people like Rashida Tlaib elevated as thought leaders on this topic when she's, again, just a spokesperson for Hamas at this point. And now we're seeing the media take what should be an obvious story, which is someone was killed, whether it be manslaughter or homicide or murder. Someone was killed because they were hit with a megaphone, fell to the ground and hit their head. By all accounts, that's murder. That would certainly be murder if we were talking about any other group. But because the victim is Jewish in this case, and because the aggressor is someone who's pro-Palestinian, the media are helping out by ironing over the key details, which is just absolutely appalling. You would not see this in any other, framed in any other way if it was any other person killed. You have the Joe Biden administration coming out and talking about Islamophobia the days after the most deadly day for Jews since the Holocaust. That is where most people in America on the left are coming from right now, and it's appalling.
It sure is. It's just unbelievable to me, and it makes me wonder, where are groups like the Anti-Defamation League on this? Shouldn't they be speaking up at a time like this? Shouldn't they be outraged that their own people are being so smeared in the public headlines here?
Well, I think the funniest thing about the ADL is that Jonathan Greenblatt is spending time talking with Al Sharpton, who's one of the most high-profile anti-Semites in the country. He's been accused of inciting multiple race riots in which Jews were killed. He said, if the Jews want to get it on, pin back your yarmulkes and come over to my house. This is the kind of person that Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the ADL, is hanging out with now. And so it's obviously a joke. I don't think the ADL particularly cares about all forms of anti-Semitism. I know a lot of people at the ADL do, but in terms of the leadership, they're a leftist organization. And so they care about certain types of anti-Semitism that help them push their narrative. But that's how a lot of people on both sides of the political aisle look at anti-Semitism. You have people who will ignore the anti-Semitism of Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, Cori Bush, the Squad, because it doesn't help them push their political narrative. And everything we're seeing right now is the result of radical Islam teaming up with radical leftism to take over and destroy the West. And the only thing we've got to ask there is what happens when they do destroy the West, because there's only room for one of them in the car afterwards. And that's going to be radical Islam. So the leftists, who are really useful idiots in this case, need to wake up too, because they'll be the sheep in the wolf's mouth the second that there's no one left.
Exactly. It's really astounding to me that Americans from all ends of the political spectrum don't recognize that, yes, it may start with the Jews, but it doesn't end there, right? I mean, I think that's becoming abundantly clear with the protests and demonstrations in D.C. and the White House. Clearly all acts of aggression. I mean, what is this ultimately leading to?
Well, it's the goal of both the radical left and radical Islam, which is to destroy the West. There's a reason why all of these people care about Israel and they couldn't care less about any other country. No one's talking about Tibet. No one's talking about the Kurds. There were Africans today or yesterday massacred by jihadi groups. No one cares, because all of this is about Israel, because all of this is about Jews, because Jews, through the lens of intersectionality and identity politics, are rich and white and powerful, apparently. And everyone else, including the Palestinians, are poor and brown and they're therefore victims. It doesn't matter that 1,400 innocent Israeli citizens, most of them Jews, were murdered, burnt alive, mutilated, tortured, raped. None of that matters. They are the aggressors. You have people like Rashida Tlaib describing this as resistance. The world is upside down because these institutions, these organizations want to destroy the West. And Judaism, along with Christianity, is the heart of Western values. And so they want to destroy Judaism just like they want to destroy Christianity. It's just destroying Judaism is much easier by, a matter of numbers, but also the fact that the vast majority of the world is deeply anti-Semitic, and so it's the easiest rung on the ladder to go for. But if people think this will end here, if that is a reason for you to care, like, I think you should care about this because innocent people being killed on either side of the conflict is abhorrent, and Hamas are responsible for both sides. But if you need any other motivation to care, this will be coming for you soon. Yeah. And people need to wake up to that reality.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And it's really unfortunate that more people don't see the bigger picture here. Now, switching gears just a little bit, Ian, there's a video that's gone viral of a black woman throwing a Jewish woman to the ground in New York City. Let's roll that clip. I have it here, and then we'll come right back to you.
What the f***? Oh, ow, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why did you just come up to me and assault? Yo. What is going on? What is this?
She went up to my phone and put.
You just came up to me, put your hands on me, and then
what are you doing?
Can you please ask nicely? You know how scary that is to get.
Why are you taking signs of kidnapped people? I don't understand.
Okay, because the whole thing is that.
But those are kidnapped children. I don't understand.
You know how scary it is to be black and get dragged off for no reason? No, you don't.
So after the black woman assaults the Jewish woman, she then proceeds to claim that she and black people are the victims. Ian, what does BLM and pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas people have in common here?
Well, I think one thing is at the center of their propaganda is the idea that they are unquestionably victims. I think you can have black people who are victims, you can have white people who are victims, but being a victim is a matter of what was done to you in the moment, say. And the fact that she can assault someone and then immediately claim victimhood, do you know how scary it is to be a black woman? So what does that have to do anything when you were the person who just assaulted someone for really no reason? Setting aside the context of tearing down these missing posters, which is itself disgusting. But at the center of intersectionality, at the center of identity politics, at the center of pro-Palestinian propaganda, at the center of the propaganda that people like the Squad push, is that you are a victim based on what color your skin is, what religion you are, where you came from. None of these things matter. Content of character matters, how you behave matters, your ideology matters, how you treat others matter. What color your skin is does not matter, but it's a very easy way to divide people, make people feel unquestionably good about themselves. They never have to look internally at their own behavior. They never have to hold themselves to account for any bad behavior, because you can just say, I'm a black, therefore I'm always a victim, even if that means I'm assaulting someone. It's obviously absurd, but it's tribal politics at its root, and it's incredibly effective.
Incredibly effective and incredibly dangerous. I think it's quite clear, and this didn't start in Israel on October 7th, and it certainly didn't start or end here in the United States on 9/11. This is the war of Islamic Jihad, and we either get into it to win it or we're done, right? I mean, how does this end up playing out?
Yeah, I mean, one of two ways. I don't think we will ever destroy this ideology, the idea that radical Islam is going away anytime soon. I think it's something we need to be constantly awake to, constantly aware of, and constantly fighting. And I think it's by nature of the fact that you have people like Barack Obama and now Joe Biden, who had a really absurdly moronic view of the world in that you can bribe people into not wanting to cut your head off. It's absurd. It's laughably absurd. But we are seeing the consequences of that ideology right now. You have people like Iran who reportedly delayed these attacks. They were originally supposed to be scheduled for Passover. They delayed it to October 7th so that Iran could get the $6 billion from Joe Biden. That's what we're dealing with. You cannot bribe people who do not share any values that we do into coming to the table in any kind of well-behaved or respectful way, that any kind of view of equality is important. These people fundamentally think differently to us. And until we accept that and wake up from this naive sense of the world, some kind of globalist idea that we're all the same, we're not. Yeah. Western values are superior to the kind of values that are beneath radical Islam. And until we accept that without being labeled as racist, then attacks like this are going to continue to happen because we're essentially opening the door for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Ian. All great points. Well, we're all out of time for today, but thank you so much for joining us and weighing in. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.